Three men walked into a room in Abuja, and Kano APC hasn't been the same since. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, Peter Obi, Seriake Dickson, one NNPP governor maker, one Labour Party presidential candidate, one former PDP governor from the South-South. On the surface, they have absolutely nothing in common. Different parties, different regions, different political DNA. So why are they meeting? Quietly, without cameras, without a joint press statement. Here's what nobody is asking. While APC in Kano is calling this a threat and PDP is pretending not to notice, what exactly is being built here and how far along is it already? Because if you think this is just three politicians having tea, you are about to be very surprised. Before we go deeper, if you're just finding Naija newsfeed, welcome. This channel exists to break down what's really happening in Nigerian politics without the noise, without the spin. Hit subscribe and stay with me because this one gets interesting. Let me lay the foundation quickly because the details matter here. In recent weeks, credible reports emerged that Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, the NNPP national leader and arguably the most powerful political figure in Kano, held a private meeting with Peter Obi of Labour Party and Seriake Dickson, former governor of Bayelsa and a significant voice in PDP's South-South. The meeting, held away from the press, sent shockwaves through the political class, particularly inside Kano APC. Now, why does this matter right now? Nigeria is already in the political season. The 2027 general elections are close enough that coalition conversations are not speculation anymore, they are survival strategy. Every major political player is quietly stress-testing their options. Who can I work with? Who do I need? Where do my votes come from? And where do theirs go? Kwankwaso ran for president in 2023 under NNPP and came fourth, but he didn't come fourth quietly. He dominated Kano, a state with one of the largest voting populations in the entire country. Peter Obi shocked the political establishment by winning Lagos and pulling millions of first-time voters who had never believed in Nigerian politics. Dickson, meanwhile, has deep roots in the South-South, a region that controls significant oil revenue politics and whose bloc votes can tilt a federal election. Three men, three regions, three political movements that in 2023 each pulled votes away from the establishment. The question is, what happens if they stop pulling in different directions? Now, here's the part Kano APC is really worried about, and it's not what you think. Let's talk about the rules of the game, because understanding the structure is what separates people who follow Nigerian politics from people who actually understand it. Nigeria runs a first-past-the-post presidential system. You don't need 50%, you need to win the most votes, with at least 25% in 2/3 of states. That's the constitutional threshold. What that means in practice is this: a candidate can lose the Southwest, lose the North Central, and still win if they consolidate enough votes in the right geopolitical blocks. NNPP is currently a registered federal party. Labour Party is a registered federal party. They both have structures, they both have state executives, and critically, they both have polling unit presence that cost money and years to build. Now, here's the institutional layer people miss: INEC's regulations on party mergers, alliances, and candidate substitution. Nigerian law permits pre-election alliances where parties agree to field a single candidate without formally merging. This is not speculation. It happened before, it will happen again, and INEC has rules that govern it. What APC in Kano is fearing is not that Kwankwaso is leaving NNPP. It's that he doesn't have to. He can stay exactly where he is and still coordinate electoral strategy with Peter Obi's network and Dickson's South-South machinery. The Nigerian constitution does not prevent politicians from meeting. It does not prevent informal strategic alignment. The gray area is enormous, and experienced politicians like these three know exactly how to operate inside it. INEC becomes relevant when formal filings happen. Until then, everything you're watching is perfectly legal and deliberately difficult to track. This is the core. Pay close attention here. Who benefits and how? Let's start with Kwankwaso. His political situation in Kano is more complicated than it looks. Since the 2023 elections, the relationship between NNPP and APC in Kano has been a low-grade war. APC under the Tinubu administration controls federal patronage, the money, the appointments, the contracts. Kwankwaso controls the street, the loyalty of millions of ordinary Kano residents who would vote for a lamppost if Kwankwasia told them to. But loyalty without federal muscle is a slow-burning problem. He needs to expand his coalition or risk being gradually squeezed out. A working alliance with Peter Obi gives him the southeast. With Dickson, the south-south. Suddenly, you are talking about a northern anchor, a southeastern pillar, and a south-south bridge. 3 of Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones, plus whatever internal fractures they can exploit in the southwest and north-central. Peter Obi's calculation is just as precise. His 2023 performance proved that a genuinely new political movement was possible in Nigeria, but it also exposed the ceiling. Without a credible northern anchor, and Obi himself knew this, you cannot win the presidency. His support was concentrated in a way that was impressive but not quite enough. Kwankwaso gives him Kano. Kano alone can contribute millions of votes. That is not a small thing. Now, Dickson, why is he here? Seriake Dickson is not a man who shows up to meetings without a purpose. His presence signals something important about what's happening inside PDP's South-South caucus. Governors in that region have always maintained back channels. They have to, because oil politics demands it. If Dickson is in the room, it suggests that at least a portion of the South-South political class is open to options outside PDP, or is using this as leverage inside PDP. Here is the thing that changes the whole frame. This meeting is not necessarily about 2027 elections. It could be about 2027 positioning. In Nigerian politics, the threat of a coalition is often more powerful than the coalition itself. If Kwankwaso, Obi, and Dickson can credibly signal that they might work together, it forces APC to offer concessions. It forces PDP to take them seriously. The meeting itself is a negotiating tool. The silent players. Who is not in that room but is absolutely watching it? Bola Tinubu's political office. Atiku Abubakar, who needs the north and can't afford Kwankwaso sitting outside his tent. And certain Abuja-based power brokers whose business interests depend entirely on knowing who will be president in 2027. The timeline of moves so far. 2023. Kwankwaso runs, wins Kano, loses nationally. Obi runs, wins Lagos, loses nationally. Both are outside the federal power structure. Post-election, both men maintain their structures. Both resist pressure to dissolve into APC or PDP. That decision, which looked stubborn at the time, now looks strategic. 2024-2025. Quiet conversations begin, back-channel meetings. The political class starts to take seriously the idea that a third-force conversation is not dead. Early 2026, this meeting, visible enough to send a signal, private enough to maintain deniability. By the way, there's one name I haven't mentioned yet, who may be the most important person connected to this meeting. I'll get to them before the end. If this alignment holds and produces a joint presidential candidate in 2027, even informally, here is what the map could look like. NNPP delivers Kano and significant votes in Katsina and Jigawa. Labour delivers the southeast. Dickson's network activates the south-south. That's a credible 3-zone base. The question becomes the middle belt and the southwest, and there are conversations happening there too, though we don't have confirmed details. And there's one financial question sitting underneath all of this that nobody is talking about publicly. Campaign financing.
Where does the money come from for a third force coalition? I'll address that too. But before we get to what this means for Nigeria as a whole, let me tell you the part that APC in
I'm going to keep this section tight because the international angle here is real but often overstated. Western governments, particularly the US and UK, have made clear that they are watching Nigerian democracy closely post-2023. The controversies around that election's conduct, the tribunal proceedings, and the general state of Nigeria's democratic institutions are all on the radar of the US State Department and the UK Foreign Office. A credible multi-regional opposition coalition forming in Nigeria is, from their perspective, not a bad thing. It signals competitive democracy, it reduces the risk of a one-party state emerging. The diaspora angle is more direct. Nigerian communities in the UK, US, and Canada, many of whom were enthusiastic Obi supporters in 2023, will be watching this alignment closely. Diaspora remittances are one of Nigeria's largest sources of foreign exchange. Diaspora political engagement, both financial and reputational, can influence how international media frames Nigerian political stories. The China angle is quieter but worth noting. Chinese infrastructure investment in Nigeria is tied to government relationships, not opposition movements. If a change in government becomes credible, and that's still a big if, Chinese interests will start making quiet calculations about where to position. The honest international take? The world doesn't need this coalition to succeed, but it needs Nigeria to remain a functional democracy. Right now, those two things may be pointing in the same direction. Now let me tell you what people are getting completely wrong about this story, because there's a lot of noise out there. Let me be honest with you about the weaknesses in this story and about what people are getting wrong. Misconception 1. This is just political tourism. Some commentators are dismissing this meeting as three politicians who are out of power just talking, getting together for networking with no real plan. That's too easy. Kwankwaso does not do ceremonial meetings. Obi does not waste his time. Dickson has a reputation for being calculating. When men like these sit down together, it means something was put on the table. Misconception 2. An opposition coalition can't win in Nigeria. History actually suggests otherwise. MKO Abiola's 1993 victory, annulled as it was, showed that a genuine cross-regional appeal could win. The 2015 APC coalition that brought Buhari to power was itself a merger of opposition parties that everyone said couldn't work. It worked. Nigerian political history is full of impossible coalitions that happened anyway. Misconception 3. Kwankwaso is just using this to pressure APC for a deal. This is the most sophisticated counter-argument, and there's truth in it. Some analysts believe this meeting is primarily a Kwankwaso leverage play. He signals strength, APC panics, and eventually someone from the Tinubu camp comes to him with a better offer. It's possible, but that reading assumes Obi and Dickson are willing to be used as props, and I don't think either man's track record supports that reading. They have their own reasons to be in that room. Where the coalition argument genuinely falls apart: financing, infrastructure, time. Building a credible national campaign outside the two major parties requires money that third parties in Nigeria have historically struggled to access. It requires polling unit agents in 36 states. It requires legal teams ready for tribunal season. These are not things you improvise. If the coalition is real, we should start seeing financial commitments and structural investments within the next 6 to 8 months. If we don't, then the cynics may be right. And here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Even if this coalition fails, it has already succeeded in one sense. It has forced the political conversation to shift. APC in Kano is nervous. PDP is recalculating. The simple act of three men meeting has moved pieces on a board that looked settled. That is political power, and these men know how to wield it.
Let me give you the forecast. Here is what to watch for. Most likely next moves.
Kwankwaso will not make a public announcement anytime soon. Watch instead for NNPP party activity, state congresses, rallies in Kano, any sign that the party structure is being strengthened rather than worn down. A party that's building is a party that's preparing to contest. Peter Obi will continue his public-facing work, the town halls, the economic commentary, the media appearances. But watch his travel patterns. Which states is he visiting? If he starts showing up in the northwest and south-south in the same quarters, that's a structural signal. Dickson's moves will be quieter. Watch for any shifts in how south-south PDP governors relate to the national PDP leadership. If cracks emerge there, it's partly because this conversation is widening. Escalation signals to watch. If a formal party alliance application is filed with INEC, that's escalation. If a joint public statement emerges from any two of these three men, that's escalation. If APC in Kano begins a serious internal reconciliation with Kwankwaso, paradoxically, that's also a signal that the threat is being taken seriously. Earlier, I mentioned a name that might be the most important person connected to this meeting. Here it is, Nyesom Wike, the FCT minister, former Rivers governor, and arguably the most consequential political operative in Nigeria right now. Wike's relationship with Tinubu is transactional. His relationship with PDP is broken, and his control over Abuja's political environment means that any serious national coalition needs to either bring him in or neutralize him. There are reports, unconfirmed, that Wike has been briefed on these conversations. If true, the picture just got significantly larger. The financing question: where does the money come from? Here's the honest answer. Business interests in the Southeast who funded Obi in 2023 are still intact. Kano's business community, which has historically backed Kwankwaso, has not abandoned him. And the South-South has its own resources, some of which flow through political networks that Dickson understands better than most. A coalition of these three men does not lack potential funding. What it lacks is coordination. That's what these meetings are for. Best case scenario: a structured, funded, multi-party alliance files for 2027 with a single presidential candidate and a credible VP pick that balances region and religion. It doesn't necessarily win, but it forces a serious runoff politics scenario that changes how APC and PDP campaign. Worst case scenario: the coalition fractures over candidate selection. Ego wins. The three men go their separate ways. APC consolidates, PDP fragments further, and 2027 looks like 2023. Same result, different noise. Long-term impact if nothing changes. Nigeria continues its pattern of two-party dominance that is really one-party dominance with a loyal opposition. Democratic accountability weakens. The next generation of voters, already cynical, disengage further. I opened this video with a question. Three men walked into a room. What exactly are they building? Here's my answer, measured and clear. They are building optionality. Not yet a coalition, not yet a campaign, but a credible set of options that gives each of them more leverage than they had before they walked in. Whether that optionality becomes something structural, a real alliance, a joint ticket, a new political vehicle, depends on factors that haven't resolved yet. Money, ego, INEC timelines, and who blinks first. What I'm confident about is this: the Nigerian political establishment did not see this coming. The fact that Kano APC is rattled tells you everything. You do not rattle an establishment by having a meaningless meeting. Watch this space. Watch it closely. What do you think? Is this a real coalition in the making or the most expensive political bluff in Nigerian politics right now? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think.